Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. Jackson Reed was working through new test data. It was tedious, time-consuming work, but it was the foundation of everything he and his team had accomplished with the prototype vehicle over the past month. So whether he enjoyed it or not, he sat there collating and organizing the information for analysis. His phone buzzed with a text notification. He saw the screen light up but didn't bother checking the sender's name. Several minutes passed before he found a natural break in the data stream and looked up from his monitor. He picked up his phone and glanced at the notification. It was from a number not saved in his contacts, and though the area code was local, 512, Austin, he didn't recognize it. For a moment, he considered deleting it as spam, but then he thought he should probably open it first. Maybe it was someone from the team whose number he hadn't saved yet. He tapped the message and an image appeared on his screen. At first, he was confused. Who would send him something so intimate, so explicit? But then he read the text beneath it. Watch carefully. You still have time. Murphy's Pub, 6 p.m. He read it again, then let out a short, nervous laugh. Wrong number texts like this weren't common, but they happened. He was about to delete it when something in the photo caught his eye. His heart stopped. He hadn't noticed it at first, but there, on her left leg, so small it was almost invisible, was a tiny mole. The same mole that belonged to Vanessa, his wife of 6 years. He stared at the image again, searching desperately for something that would prove him wrong, something that would show his eyes were playing tricks on him. But the longer he looked, the more certain he became. This was an incriminating photograph of his wife. He read the message again. Murphy's Pub. He knew the place, a local spot, but not one where Vanessa usually went. It was in Round Rock, the next town over. But why would Vanessa be at Murphy's at 6 in the evening when she was supposed to be on her way to New York? Her team was preparing a major proposal. The presentation was scheduled for Monday afternoon. The whole team had flown out today and was supposed to meet tomorrow to finalize everything, then do a full dry run on Sunday before the actual pitch. Vanessa was one of the project leaders, so of course she had to be there. It was 5:15 p.m. now, and she'd been scheduled to land at JFK at 4:30. She usually called when she landed, but it was reasonable to assume she was busy coordinating the team, gathering equipment, and heading to the hotel. He thought about calling her, but decided to reply to the mysterious message first. He kept it simple. Who is this? Where did you get this photo? Should I meet you at Murphy's? He started packing up his things. He'd already made his decision. He was going to Murphy's. He was going to get answers one way or another. Before leaving, he sent Vanessa a text. How did the flight go? Grabbing dinner. Call me when you're free. He wanted to keep things low-key, try to figure out what was happening without tipping anyone off. He was walking to his car when his phone buzzed again. He thought it would be Vanessa, but it was the mysterious caller. I'll be there, but I'm sure you'll find someone more interesting than me. His head was spinning. He opened the Maps app on his phone and hurried to his car. It was a 30-minute drive to Murphy's, and it was already 5:40. He'd arrive shortly after 6. He had no idea how critical timing was, but he decided to go straight there and hope he'd arrive in time to see whoever or whatever the message sender thought would interest him. On the way, his phone rang. This time, it was Vanessa. Crazy busy with the team. I'll call you later before bed. Love you. He didn't think much of it. Their real conversation would happen later. Right now, he was more interested in getting to Murphy's and finding out how someone had obtained such private information about his wife. His heart pounded as he pulled into the parking lot at 6:12 p.m. The sender hadn't given him any hint about who he was looking for, so he assumed that whoever wanted him here knew what he looked like and would make contact. But it was the comment, someone more interesting than me, that caused him the most concern. The sender clearly knew something he didn't, and he felt like he was being set up. But he couldn't think of any other way to get to the bottom of this. His stomach churned. He trusted Vanessa completely. Their relationship, their intimacy, it had always been good. Or so he'd thought. But there was only one way someone could have gotten that photo, and he was about to find out. The finality of that realization terrified him. He stepped inside and paused to let his eyes adjust to the dim lighting. Not knowing the pub's layout, he moved away from the door and surveyed the space. In front of him was a large dining area, and to the left was a bar. He walked to the bar, found a seat at the end, and sat down. The bartender had just finished serving a well-dressed man and approached Jackson to take his order. He asked for a draft beer and turned to scan the dining area. His attention was drawn to the well-dressed man, who was now walking across the dining room floor toward a table full of smiling people. And then he saw her. Vanessa was sitting at the table, accepting a drink from the well-dressed man. She was smiling, dressed to impress in her black cocktail dress and pearls. Jackson felt himself go on autopilot. He stood up and walked toward the table. He was 2 steps away when she saw him. Her face shifted from an open smile to a look of sheer terror. He didn't slow down. As he reached the table, he grabbed the well-dressed man by the hair with his left hand and yanked back sharply. The man dropped his drinks, stumbled backward, lost his balance, and cried out. As Jackson pulled him past, he released his grip and cocked his right arm, ready to throw a punch. But the man's backward momentum was too fast. He was already out of range, falling hard onto his rear before Jackson could land the blow. Jackson took 1 step toward him and recognized him immediately. "Don't get up, Derek," Jackson said, his voice cold. "I'm serious." The formerly well-dressed Derek looked up from his drink-soaked suit, now crumpled at Jackson's feet. He nodded but didn't move or speak. Jackson turned back to Vanessa. The entire table had gone silent. He recognized several people. They were all part of Vanessa's team. They'd been to his house for dinners and get-togethers. Maybe team loyalty trumped infidelity, he thought bitterly. Except for one person. Someone at this table knew the truth and had decided to tell him. He thought about trying to figure out who it was. But only for a moment. It wasn't worth pursuing. "I'm going home," he said to Vanessa. "If you expect any chance of saving our marriage, you'll come home now." She nodded and started to rise, but he raised his hand. "Better give me a minute to leave first." Before turning away, he looked at Lauren Brennan, who was sitting next to Kyle Donovan. "Lauren, does Marcus think you're in New York too?" "Kyle, is this what Nicole thinks?" They lowered their eyes. They couldn't meet his gaze, much less answer his question. Is the whole team really involved with each other? He thought. Unfortunately, he knew for certain that at least one of them was. The drive home was automatic. He seemed surprised to find himself in his driveway without even realizing how he'd gotten there. He entered the house, grabbed a beer from the refrigerator, and sat down in the living room. He knew Marcus Brennan and Nicole Donovan. He didn't recognize the other 2 couples at the table. There'd been 4 couples total. He debated whether to call Marcus or Nicole. He realized he didn't want to talk and didn't know much anyway. But at the same time, Lauren and Kyle were lying to their spouses too. After thinking it over, he decided to send texts to both Marcus and Nicole. "Just found out from Vanessa that the team's travel plans have changed. Better check in." Well, now they knew something had happened. They could decide whether to investigate further or not. At least his conscience was clear. About 20 minutes passed. Then he heard the garage door open and Vanessa's car pull in. He waited in the living room. She walked in, still wearing her black dress but without her shoes or jewelry. She seemed calm as she entered and sat down on the couch opposite him. He remained silent, waiting for her to begin. He knew that silence was a powerful tool in any conversation. He decided the silence would last as long as necessary. It didn't take long. Vanessa looked ready to explode. "It's not what you think," she began. He raised his hand to stop her. "You have absolutely no idea what I think about what I saw tonight," Jackson replied. "I don't need much backstory. We're both engineers. You know as well as I do that there's no real or objective answer to the question why. That's just rationalization to justify poor outcomes. So I won't even ask why. Let's start with something simpler. How long? How many? How often? And our friends, the ones I saw at that table, are they all involved in this with your colleagues?" "No, Jackson, it's not like that at all," Vanessa said quickly. "We're a team. Our travel plans got disrupted, and instead of flying back home only to leave again tomorrow, Derek suggested we just stay in town tonight and rest before the presentation. I didn't see the whole team there, Jackson said. Where was everyone else? When we got the message about the delay, some people decided to spend one more night at home and meet us at the airport tomorrow, she admitted. But you decided to lie to me, he said. And you look pretty cozy with Derek. Is there something going on between the star engineer and the ambitious program manager that you'd like to tell me? Well, for starters, Derek talked the owners of Murphy's out of pressing charges, she said, as if that were a positive. His eyes widened in complete disbelief at her sense of priorities. I don't care about your boyfriend, Jackson said. If that idiot hadn't tripped over his own feet, I would have broken his nose. By the way, the jury's still out on whether I should have. Let him press charges. I've spent a night in jail before, it doesn't scare me. Actually, this would be pretty convincing evidence for my case. He allowed himself a half smile. Do you love him? Vanessa fell silent. He could see her gathering her thoughts. Yes, she finally said. Silence was indeed a powerful tool. His mind raced to fill the void her answer had created. It doesn't look like things are going to end well for you, he said. He's not my boyfriend, she said quickly. Nothing serious is happening. Yes, I should have told you about the travel plans, but it seemed like such a small thing. Whether I was in the city or in New York, it didn't matter. You weren't expecting me back, and I was still committed to the team. All we were doing was having dinner before going to our rooms. There was no reason for you to act the way you did. He was just bringing drinks. You completely embarrassed me in front of my team. Now she was in full damage control mode, trying to see if she could bluff her way through this. He opened his phone, pulled up the message, and slid it across the coffee table toward her. From the expression on her face, he knew she remembered the photo and the circumstances. She realized there was no point denying it. She started again, this time without pretense. He picked up his phone from the table, opened the voice recording app, and slipped it into his shirt pocket. Jackson, our team is... She searched for the right word. Very close. In a lot of ways. Most of us. We have a small group that meets regularly. Murphy's has always been our spot. We're the ones who carry most of the workload preparing these proposals. You know how much time I've spent on this project. I don't know how it started, she continued. It was sometime after Derek took over as lead engineer. We worked closely together and I was attracted to him, and it just happened. No, Vanessa, he said firmly. Things like this don't just happen. First, you need to make decisions. Lots of conscious decisions. We both know that. So don't insult me by pretending otherwise. Fine, she said, her voice hardening. It's been about 6 months with Derek. That's when he signed his new contract. Happy? The team, he said slowly. All of you. He let the implication hang in the air without naming it directly. You're all involved with each other? She nodded. Yes. Derek said it was good for building trust and team dynamics. Is that what he told you all to convince you to start this arrangement? Jackson asked, disbelief evident in his voice. Now you're being rude, she snapped. It's much more than that. I feel more connected to Derek and my team than ever before. Her bravado was returning, and he had a bad feeling about where this was heading. Unfortunately, you may be seeing some personnel changes in your team soon, Jackson said quietly. What did you do? Vanessa gasped. Jackson, if you tell anyone else, it'll ruin even more lives. Let them decide for themselves, he replied. We have to face facts, Vanessa. You should know I can't be complicit through my silence. I like Marcus and Nicole. Actually, I like them a lot better than Lauren and Kyle, he added. I sent them both messages saying I just found out your travel plans had changed. How your friends answer their spouses and how their spouses react, that's up to them. I can sleep peacefully with my decision. Jackson, we have the most productive team in the history of the company, she almost shouted. And you've benefited too, mister. Just because we had team planning meetings on Wednesdays doesn't mean you missed out. I never turned you away. You always had access to me whenever you wanted. So I was having fun with my team a little earlier. You never even knew. She was growing more agitated, almost mocking him now. That photo you showed me, do you want to know about it? Now, just because your fragile ego is hurt, you want to trivialize everything that me and my team have achieved. She was hissing now, getting angrier with each word. It excited me, Jackson. He felt his heart rate spike as Vanessa continued to defend what she called the team's driving force, and his own anger rose to match hers. For a moment during the drive home from Murphy's, he'd thought that if this was just one time with Derek, maybe he could find a way to forgive her. That thought had died quickly. He didn't need to hear any more. He didn't want to hear any more. But she kept going. No, sir, we're not going to let you get away with this. You should text Marcus and Nicole back right now and tell them you heard from me. That we're stuck in Atlanta, but we have flights booked for the morning. That's the story Lauren and Kyle are going to use, and you are going to support it. So help me. Her voice had risen to a shout. There are tens of millions riding on this deal, she continued, her voice shaking. Your grievances don't mean a damn thing. Send those messages, and then we'll talk about what to do next. What's next? Jackson said coldly. There is no next, Vanessa. Your sick team, and your leader Derek can continue as you wish. We're done. I'll find a lawyer this week and sort everything out. Simple 50-50 split. You keep your pension, I keep mine. Leave, he continued. You have reservations in the city. Use them. Go to New York and get another big win for you and your team. Please, Jackson, send those messages, Vanessa said, her tone suddenly softer, almost pleading. If we lose Lauren or Marcus before the presentation, the company could lose millions. You and we could lose tens, maybe hundreds of thousands in commissions and bonuses. Just think where we could go with that money. Just you and me. Forget about this misunderstanding, please. Don't let some unfounded fears about casual relationships get in the way. Derek says I'm on the fast track to executive status. I just need to keep doing what we're doing for a few more years. Don't you want this for me? For us? Vanessa, just go away, he said quietly. He barely had time to finish speaking when he was struck hard from behind. The impact knocked the wind out of him, and he collapsed forward onto the floor. A knee pressed into his back, pinning him down. Don't hurt him, Derek, Vanessa's voice. Then, more quietly, too much. So the jury's still out on whether my nose gets broken. Huh? Derek's voice came from above him, close to his ear. Vanessa, there must be a transmitter. I knew it. Jackson's mind raced. Now I know whose team she's really fighting for. Let's see whose nose gets broken. Derek grinned. Marcus, take his phone and type those texts from him. We don't have time for this. Someone grabbed Jackson from the floor. Only one person, he realized. Jackson deliberately went limp, making himself dead weight, forcing Marcus to use all his strength to pull him upright. This gave Jackson useful information. His opponent was weak, an office worker, already wheezing from the effort. Jackson caught his breath after the initial attack and began to assess the situation more clearly. Unlike Derek and his team of polished salesmen, Jackson's engineering team had worked in the field with specialized military units out of Fort Campbell. His group wasn't anywhere near the Soldiers League, but after spending time with flight crews on test missions, they'd been invited to participate in rigorous training exercises under the guidance of some seriously tough operators who flew missions in aircraft modified by Jackson's team. These weren't regular military personnel. They were the kind of people whose arrival at your doorstep meant your days were numbered. Jackson's team had created equipment to help these operators get into dangerous situations, and more importantly, get out of them. The team was proud that their modifications helped complete missions and bring everyone home safely. The operators from the 160th had been appreciative of the hard work Jackson's crew put into making their equipment function flawlessly. And the most respected among them had been Staff Sergeant Connor Mitchell. Connor was legendary in his world. Everyone from privates to colonels showed him the respect he'd earned through countless missions around the globe. He was known for never leaving anyone behind, a reputation cemented forever during a mission in Colombia. Staff Sergeant Mitchell had told a young lieutenant to stay close during the lieutenant's first combat operation. Connor thought the kid was doing well for someone new, but when they were ambushed, everything went wrong. They fought off the attackers, But when Connor looked back, he saw the lieutenant on the ground, bleeding from a head wound. "He's unconscious," the medic had said, checking vitals. Connor had knelt down and picked the lieutenant up in a fireman's carry. "He's gone," the medic said. "He's dead." "Perhaps," Connor had replied calmly. "But he's still coming home with us." The medic looked at him like he'd lost his mind. They still had more than 3 miles to the extraction point through dense jungle. They'd be lucky to make it back alive themselves, let alone carrying a dead man. Connor read his thoughts. "I'd do the same for you, Billy," he'd told the medic. "Stay close in case I need you." What happened next became legendary. When they returned to base, the medical team met them as the helicopter landed. The medic explained that the lieutenant had died. The doctor nodded, pulled out a penlight, and checked the dead man's pupils. They constricted sharply under the beam. "Want to reconsider your diagnosis?" the doctor had asked the medic as they rushed the very much alive lieutenant into surgery. Connor was one of those rare individuals who seemed ageless. He didn't talk much, but when he did speak, everyone listened. In an era of disposability and shortcuts, he was neither. He was old-school craftsmanship made human. Jackson and his team had clearly held special interest for Connor. During the long hours of downtime between missions, the staff sergeant had shown his appreciation by teaching them basic but effective self-defense techniques. "It's best to know a few things just in case," Connor had told the engineers. "I know the biggest threat you'll face is a jammed copier or a nasty paper cut. But if you stay in this business, you'll travel to some interesting places. So if you happen to meet one of the local characters in a bad mood, you'll have something useful to fall back on. Let's hope a paper cut is the worst thing you ever face." Jackson allowed his breathing to slow and become more controlled. He leaned back slightly into Marcus's grip, letting Marcus think he had him secured. He was remembering more of Connor's lessons now, and the techniques were coming back to him. "You may find yourself in a position where you can't do much except take the hits," Connor had taught them. "It sucks, but it happens. The main thing to remember is that even when you're getting hit, you can still fight back. You just need to be smarter than the guy hitting you." Jackson remembered Connor's lesson. He leaned back against Marcus, passively resisting and draining his captor's strength. "Give me the phone, Jackson," Derek said, looking him straight in the eyes. "Look, now you know I spent the night with your wife. You're just another weak, nerdy engineer. Do what we're asking, and maybe you can stay with Vanessa when the team isn't using her. Think about all the nice things you can buy with her bonus. Hell, maybe she'll even buy you some company for when she's too busy." Jackson kept his mouth shut. Derek was taking too much pleasure in this, enjoying the humiliation he was inflicting. "Where is it?" Derek demanded, noticing the outline of a phone in Jackson's shirt pocket. "Ah, there it is." He reached for it with his right hand. Jackson stepped back hard with his right heel, catching Marcus's shin about halfway up and dragging it down until he slammed into his dress shoe. He flexed his arms and broke Marcus's grip. Marcus cried out in pain and fell, his injured leg no longer able to support his weight. Derek's eyes widened in recognition. Jackson's right hand shot forward and he turned his shoulder as Connor had shown him, slamming his clenched fist into the center of Derek's face with maximum force. He felt bone break under his fist. Blood erupted from Derek's nose and he collapsed to the floor as if he'd been struck with an axe. Jackson turned to see who had been holding him. It was Marcus. He lay on the floor, crying and clutching his leg. "I think you broke my leg," Marcus whined. Jackson stepped hard on his foot. Marcus cried out in pain. "That should remove all doubt," Jackson said. Turning around, he saw Derek on the floor, raising both hands to his face and trying to rise to his knees. Jackson walked up to him and lowered his face next to his ear. "Looks like your nose got broken, Derek. I'm just not ready to take one for the team," he said, and struck him hard on the temple. Derek sank back down. Jackson's adrenaline surged and his breathing quickened as he searched the living room for Vanessa. At that moment, he felt a strong blow to the middle of his back and the base of his neck. He dropped to one knee and turned to face another attack. He looked up and saw Vanessa holding a cast iron frying pan. She'd missed her target and dealt Jackson only a glancing blow. He rose to his feet and grabbed the pan. "Jackson, we can still make it work," she said. "Think about the money you'll throw away. I'll stop all the extra activities. I'll stop them, I promise. Just you and me. Just like old times." Jackson massaged the back of his head with his left hand and looked at her, stunned at how quickly she was shifting personas. For a moment, he thought about the alien from John Carpenter's The Thing, how it changed shape with each new challenge. He smiled at the thought. Vanessa took this smile as silent consent to her request and moved to embrace him. He lowered his left hand from his neck to steady her. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he raised his right hand and struck her nose. Not hard enough to knock her unconscious, but hard enough to break bone. Vanessa screamed and collapsed on the floor. "It hurts, doesn't it?" Jackson asked. "Your eyes are watering. You can't see. You can't breathe. There's blood everywhere. It works every time." "Why did you hit me?" she cried. "Because I could," he replied. His phone was still recording. Not all of the recording was in his favor, but he felt he had enough to justify his actions. He quickly looked around the room and remembered what Connor had told him. "Decide when you can act, and don't move until it's right. But once you do, commit completely, and don't stop until no one's moving but you." He looked around. Except for Marcus whimpering in the corner and Vanessa trying to stop the blood flowing from her nose, he was the only one moving. "You saved your own life," he thought. "It doesn't look like your lover boy and Marcus will be able to make it to Monday. Damn bad luck. Missing out on all those millions and big bonuses." He continued, "Well, I wonder what Gordon will say when he finds out." He considered calling 911, but he waited. Once the police showed up, he'd lose his chance to question Vanessa further. He walked over to where she was sitting. A dish towel was pressed to her face. Jackson knelt down next to her. "Pinch the bridge of your nose with your thumb and index finger. Like this," he said, demonstrating. The surge of adrenaline subsided and he suddenly lost all his energy. He sat down heavily opposite Vanessa. Where did his wife go? The Vanessa he saw every day was not the same woman who sat opposite him now. He wondered again how she had deceived him for so long and so thoroughly. "Was it worth it?" he asked. Vanessa looked at him and shook her head. "It could have been," she said. "If you would just agree. We were so close. After Monday, I'd be on my way to the executive suite. This will set me back. I can fix everything, but it will set me back." "So this is all you dreamed of? Becoming a vice president?" Jackson said. "What about us? The deception, the lies? Will this continue?" "Jackson, you're so naive. Derek knew this. He told me that your black and white ethics and Boy Scout attitude would hold me back if I let them. He told me I had to break away from your control and become my own woman if I wanted to succeed." "Did he tell you this before or after he got what he wanted from you?" Jackson asked. "You don't know half of it," she spat. "Oh, I tried to be a good engineer, do all the things you said would improve my career. Do you want to know what actually works?" Jackson was silent. "When someone decides to self-destruct, sometimes you just have to get out of the way," she said. He was still recording. "Well, I'll tell you, my loving husband. All those things you told me didn't work. I bent over backward to make sure all my assignments were completed on time and on budget, and all I got was a few, well done, girl. It wasn't until Lauren took me aside that I learned what a woman really needs to do to be successful. Trust me, sleeping your way to the top works, and it's a lot easier and a lot more fun." "So this happened before Derek showed up?" Jackson asked. "Oh, for such a smart engineer, you can be awfully slow sometimes, Jackson," she said. "It was at a Christmas party, a year after I joined the company, that I gave myself to Gordon for the first time, and I never looked back." "Wait, are you also involved with the boss? With Gordon himself?" Jackson asked incredulously. "Yes, Jackson. Gordon, Derek, Marcus, and everyone else on the team who can help my career here. Even now, while you thought you had everything figured out, we told Gordon where we were going when we headed here. Now he's assembling the rest of the team. They'll be given a cover story about our absence. They'll have to make the pitch without us, but I think the extra effort we put in with their purchasing managers will pay off. Do I really want to hear this? He thought. Oh, what the hell? Why not? Extra effort, Jackson said quietly. You've always been so proactive, Vanessa. You've always been so focused on the work, Vanessa said. It was so easy that I don't even want to call it effort. She laughed bitterly. What's the old joke? Even the worst experience was still pretty good. She continued. At the selection committee meeting, it was so easy with the men that we had to get a little more creative with Brenda, the woman on the committee. It's funny, I even managed that, but I had to bring Derek along for support. And if you factor in the promises that after we land the contract we'll all work together, then yes, our selection committee is in perfect order. Why then all this? Jackson gestured at the chaos around them. I mean, if everything was going so well, why all these forceful methods? It was Derek's idea, the idiot, she said. I told him I'd come home, calm you down, and be back in time to catch the flight. But he wanted to play alpha male. Look what it got us. And now, instead of being the face of a winning team, I'm sitting here with you. Like I said, this can be fixed, but it will set me back. You wouldn't come so cheap, he said. Maybe not, Vanessa replied. But I'd still do well. Well, now you definitely won't, he said. Remembering that Derek seemed so well informed, he decided that Vanessa must have some kind of transmitter with her. Gordon, are you listening? Jackson called out. I'll call the police now. I'm sure there are several felonies involved here, and we haven't even begun to go down the rabbit hole of fraud. This is a federal contract, isn't it, Vanessa? He asked rhetorically. Yes. The feds don't really appreciate what you call extra effort. I'm sure you have excellent lawyers and all that, but maybe there's an alternative. He let it hang in the air. A moment later, Vanessa's cell phone began playing Hail to the Chief. Gordon? She asked, answering it. Certainly. I'll put it on speaker. Gordon's voice came through the speaker. First, let me apologize. Derek's actions were a blunder. I can assure you that the board of directors will deal with him decisively. Thank you, Gordon. My heart is relieved to see you and the board take assault and fraud so seriously, Jackson said. Jackson, these are all very serious accusations, Gordon continued. Lawyers will get rich, but no one wants to rock the boat. We can pay the fine. Derek and Marcus will get community service, but in the end, you'll get divorced and be half as poor. His tone was matter of fact. Do I hear or in this tale, Gordon? Jackson asked. Vanessa always said you were the smarter of the two, Gordon replied. However, I'm more glad I hired her. Yes, Jackson, there is definitely here. We see that Derek displaced you in your wife's affections, and when you found out and objected, you were treated in the most shameful manner. Instead of calling the cops, as you put it, we could come to an agreement. I just sent a picture to Vanessa's phone, Gordon continued. Well, not me personally, but one of my technicians. They tell me the image will disappear after viewing. Look, perhaps this will restore some goodwill. Vanessa opened the photo and turned the phone toward Jackson. He saw the inscription Bank of Grand Cayman and an account number. And when will this be activated? Jackson asked. It's already there, Jackson. You have an email with your account details. It's been a very bad day for you, Jackson. You may be having a hard time making a decision, and I'm not discounting emotions. Vanessa is a very desirable woman. But be that as it may, you can't take emotions to the bank, right? Gordon adopted a matter-of-fact tone. You can't, Jackson agreed, matching Gordon's manner of speech. The company will cover the costs of your divorce. You can never reconcile, I think we all understand that. Vanessa will file. She'll demand her personal belongings and pension. Jackson thought for a moment before answering. On the one hand, I could take a principled stand, expose the whole sordid story, and let the chips fall, Jackson said. On the other hand, I could just leave. You've just given me 5 million reasons to do just that. Does the company have medical personnel? Jackson asked. Oh yes, Jackson. I think we have several doctors available, Gordon replied. Okay, Jackson said. You'd better load a few into a limousine and send them here for your team. So we agree? Gordon asked. With Vanessa? Exactly, Jackson answered. Are we done? Jackson asked. Goodbye, Jackson, Gordon said. Jackson ended the conversation. He took out his phone, turned off the recording app, and put it back in his pocket. I knew you would understand our way, Jackson, Vanessa said. We can still be friends. Friends with benefits when this is all over. She conjured up what seemed to her most winning smile. But even her perky expression couldn't cancel the effect of her destroyed nose. Her eyes had turned black, and blood was caked under her nose, dripping in red drops onto her chin. Jackson found the sight almost comical and allowed himself to smile. Vanessa misinterpreted his smile as agreement and leaned in to kiss him. Jackson extended his right hand to stop her. I hit you too hard or not hard enough. In what world would I want to kiss you, Vanessa? She looked up at him with an offended expression. Take whatever you want, but don't be here tomorrow, Jackson said, and walked to the door. He stopped next to Marcus. Do your legs still hurt? He asked. Yes. Damn it, you idiot. It still hurts, Marcus whined. Maybe this will distract you, Jackson said, and kicked him sharply between the legs. Marcus arched and groaned. Jackson got into his car, not knowing where he would go, but food and shelter were high on the hierarchy of needs for good reason. He grabbed a hamburger at a nearby diner and checked into a Red Roof Inn on the outskirts of the city, not far from the highway. He fell asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow, despite the aches and pains of what he estimated to be at least 100 different injuries inflicted on his body. He woke up early in the morning and dragged his aching body out of bed. He was making coffee in the motel room when his phone buzzed. He reached for it. It was a message from that same number, the one that had started all this. Sorry about yesterday. I can meet you at the mall food court around noon. I'll be at the bar. See you there. He wrote a reply. Yes, I'll be there. He thought for a moment, then set up his laptop. It was time for some online banking. In college, long before meeting Vanessa, Jackson had an economics professor who recommended having at least one offshore account as a rainy day fund. He'd had nothing to lose and, with the professor's help, had soon become the owner of a brand new bank account in the Cayman Islands. It was his Love You Foundation, he'd called it jokingly. He'd opened the account 10 years ago and added to it whenever possible. He was proud that he'd managed to save about $50,000. Well, his Love You Foundation was about to get a serious boost. Jackson opened each bank's website. With passwords and a few keystrokes, he transferred most of Gordon's payment into his personal offshore account. In the original joint account, he left $100,000. He showered, changed clothes, and prepared to go meet the mysterious sender. Jackson arrived at the mall just after noon. Walking inside, he saw a man who waved to him. He looked about Jackson's age, handsome and well-dressed. Jackson approached. I think you sent me a message, Jackson said, sitting down. I'm sorry that everything turned out this way, the stranger began. I don't know if there was any clean way to tell you. Why don't you start with who you are and how you're related to Vanessa? Jackson replied. I was on the team, the stranger said. I left the army after 8 years of service. I was wounded in combat, had a long recovery, and was medically discharged. I joined the company about 6 months ago. I was assigned to Derek's team about 3 months ago. I was telling a friend about work and mentioned that I work with Vanessa. When he asked her full name, we found out we had a mutual friend, and he asked me to look after her as a favor. First, everything was great. I was warmly received by the team. It wasn't immediately clear why. He paused. Vanessa approached me about 2 months later. She's very attractive and persuasive. But when I asked her about the ring, she just smiled and said, It's okay with you. I didn't agree and said so. That marked the beginning of the deep freeze. After I turned her down, I got all the worst assignments and nothing but grief from Derek. I called our mutual friend back and told him that Vanessa had approached me. He thought there was more to it than she was saying and that you should know. Derek had sent me a photo, trying to get me on board so I'd participate. Let's just say I don't agree with their methods. I think I'm a straight shooter. I quit yesterday and sent you that message. Who's your friend? Jackson asked. Connor Mitchell, the stranger replied. If I hadn't met Connor. He paused for a moment before continuing. Let's just say he helped me out of some trouble when I was a green lieutenant. I owe him a couple of favors. We both should, Jackson agreed. What are you going to do? The stranger asked. Gordon sort of outlined it all for me, Jackson said. I could get the cops involved, and yes, Marcus and Derek and even Vanessa would get in trouble with the law. But with Gordon's lawyers, it would probably end in nothing. We made a deal. You might think I'm selling out, and maybe to some extent you're right. But they stole the only irreplaceable thing I had. If I can't legally make them pay, at least I can make them pay financially. It won't bring Vanessa back, he continued. But I think I may find that she's less irreplaceable than I thought. I have a trip planned. Tell Connor thank you for everything. I won't be going back to work. Well, Connor always spoke highly of Baxter Incorporated, the stranger said. And now that you're gone, they might need another engineer. I think you'll find that they do things a little differently at Baxter. You might like it better. The work is challenging, but the added benefits don't compare to what Derek's team was offering. Jackson smiled. I think I can live with that. The stranger stood up. Jackson did the same. They simply nodded to each other and left without another word. On Monday, Jackson had just checked in for a flight to Costa Rica. Tamarindo would be a good place to unwind a bit, he thought. He headed toward security and saw a mailbox ahead. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope addressed to the U.S. Department of Justice, Washington, D.C. Inside was a flash drive with recordings. Perhaps they'll be interested, he thought. Who knows? Maybe Gordon's lawyers aren't as good as he thinks. He dropped the envelope into the box and walked to the security line. 9 months later, Jackson sat at his usual table at a beachfront cafe. Sophia, lovely as always, brought him his beer. Thank you, dear, he said, and raised the bottle to his lips. He'd received mail. He was still holding the envelope in his hands. There was no return address. He wondered who had found him. He wasn't taking any difficult steps to stay hidden, but finding him in a small town on the Pacific coast of northern Costa Rica might require some resources that weren't available to the average person. His first thought was that Gordon's people had found him. He left it at his home for 2 days. He was sure it wasn't a bomb, but you couldn't be too careful. Miguel, Jackson called to the cafe owner. Do you have a knife? See, Mr. Jackson, Miguel replied. Jackson handed over the envelope and took a few steps back. You can never be too careful, he thought as Miguel opened it. Miguel handed it back to him. Jackson thanked him, took another sip from his bottle of beer, and turned the envelope over. Several sheets of paper fell onto the table. He picked up the note. Thought you might be interested, was all it said. Instead of a signature, there was a phone number, the same number from before. Connor would have the resources to find him, he thought. I can live with that. He turned over another sheet of paper. It was a copy of an article from a newspaper with a photograph. The photo showed Derek, Marcus, Vanessa, and Lauren being led out of the company building in handcuffs. The title of the article read, "For accused of multimillion-dollar procurement fraud." He smiled. Maybe Gordon's lawyers aren't as good as he thought. He told himself this out loud. A habit he'd acquired since his Spanish was weak and English wasn't widely spoken here. He liked to hear English spoken, even if it was just talking to himself. Sophia, another beer, please, he called out, holding out his empty bottle. See, Mr. Jackson. Thank you, she said, bringing him another. Thank you, Sophia, he said, accepting the beer, taking a sip, and looking out at the deep blue Pacific Ocean. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.